Hello and welcome to another episode of the Full Force Weekly, brought to you by GeneralsJoes Reborn.com with me, Christopher McLeod AKA Diagnostik80. For today's episode, I am joined by the awesome Patrick Notpicard Stewart and Justin GeneralsJoes Bell. Burp. I'll cut that out. In this regular video, I hope it's in there now, isn't it? In this regular video series, we usually round up all of the week's news in the world of G.I. Joe, but considering we haven't had any this week, we thought we'd do something else. Top 3s are back, and today we'll be looking at our top 3 most wanted classified figures. What is it, guys? At the exact same time?
It's the Full Force, not movie news burst.
Weekly.
Top 3 classified figures.
Full Force Weekly.
Patrick's got it. He's all over it.
That was fantastic. That's phenomenal. That's the best one. And again, I didn't tell you I was going to do that, so I'm glad that you that played out exactly as I wanted it to in my head. And I thought, I'm just going to say this, and I hope it's all over the place. I hope Justin throws in a movie news burst thing in there as well. And yeah,
mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. So yeah, no news at all this week, really. Obviously, we've got Renegade Con Virtual happening tonight, and then going on into Saturday. But obviously, we'll talk about that next week. But yeah, kind of weird, isn't it? Because we have been literally inundated with G.I. Joe news for the past 2 months, almost 3 months. We've definitely always had something to talk about every week. And now it's been the first week for a long time that we've just had nothing to discuss. I mean, does that worry you a little bit, Pat?
Not really. No, I mean, there's been plenty of momentum already with G.I. Joe, and we know that we have Renegade Con, what is that, today?
Yeah, tonight, 6 p.m. Friday night, yep.
Yeah, so there's going to be news. We already know there's going to be news, and there's going to be more stuff. We have a toy line at retail that's doing well. So there's just going to be stuff coming out. I'm not worried at all.
And of course, talking about toy lines, Justin, we thought we'd do a top 3s today. Are you excited to chat about your most wanteds?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's almost an impossible choice, but yeah, I'm excited to talk about it.
I mean, let's face it, if we could make this a top 300 and we'd still be talking about characters that didn't make the list, wouldn't we?
The one thing that I love so much about the classified line is that at least, at first, lately they've kind of leaned a little bit more vintage, but at least at first, like, they could do almost any figure, and kind of the unique aesthetic they brought to the classified line would sort of reinvent it and make it cool, no matter who it was. That's not so much the case with characters like Barbecue and Roadblock, obviously, who stray very close to their vintage designs. But, beyond that, they could have picked, one, character that nobody has a whole lot of attachment to and could have done something very cool with it. And they still are. So, I mean, I'm not going to say that time has passed. But yeah, that's kind of why this list is so hard, because almost any character in the vast history of G.I. Joe could be done, and they could do something cool and interesting with it.
Absolutely. And I think seeing everyone's lists prior to recording this, there's going to be some interesting chats, I think, to come out of this. And also, let's get into the, I suppose, let's move out of this intro into the next intro. Right then, as I said in the intro, we are going to be delving into our top 3 most wanted classified picks as it currently stands. We won't be including any figures that have either been announced or unofficially leaked, and these lists are personal to the presenter for whatever reason, so if you have different picks, feel free to drop them in the comments. Okay then, first up, we have Pat. Buddy, take us through your top 3 most wanted, starting at number 3, please.
Well, I think that also in my most wanted, I kind of avoided figures that I thought we would obviously be getting.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
Some ones that I don't think we necessarily will get anytime soon.
I mean, it's pretty odds-on Ice Cream Soldiers next up, isn't it? Let's face it.
Right, so I just didn't include him because
he was on that Target list like last month, right? Yeah.
And he's going to be wearing DJ's shoes. Those crazy shoes DJ has.
Those shoes that were like this thin, yeah.
I love those. They're like, they're kind of like...
They look like a triangle.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Okay, so I'm going to start with number 3.
Obviously.
So my number 3 is Deep Six.
Oh, good shout.
The reason why I picked Deep Six actually is because of the freedom that the classified series line seems to have explored a little bit, where they're not going to necessarily have to make it match the original figure.
Sorry, could we talk about a classified figure that would be 6 feet wide, 4 feet high? It would just be like this block, wouldn't it, of plastic if they tried to mimic the original.
Only shoulders that move, and that's it.
Yeah.
The one figure that only does that. But the reason why I picked that one is that I've mentally, as far as like a redesign aspect goes, I've always thought that Deep Six could be done almost similarly to a snake armor. So the thing that I have in my head of a wish list, since this is just wishing, is a more deluxe figure, kind of like they did with Snake Eyes with Timber or Breaker with the motorcycle, to have a figure where some of the armor would snap onto him, similar to snake armor. That's kind of what I have in my head, which is you could almost have like a version 2 inside and a version 1 on the outside that you create effectively. Yeah, I mean, we saw him outside of the suit as well, or it's the classified series. There's just some freedom there. Whatever they would need to do to the inner figure to make it work with the outer armor, I think would be fine with me. I just think that it would be a really cool thing, to have Deep Six be an armored kind of huge diving suit, obviously, but also to function similarly to a snake armor. And yeah, eventually I hope that we get to see snake armor, because I think that's of a scale that would work well with classified series, but that's not a figure, so it's not on my list.
I think that's a great idea, honestly, and I think the image I have in my head of a double pack almost, with the figure on the left and all of the armor pieces to the right, like almost like as a vehicle, even though it's not it's not like the Sky Shark he's in there with, but it's like I think that would be such a cool visual, and again, really cool accessories that would come along with that, being the suit, and other aspects you could throw in there too. But I when you mentioned Deep Six, I was thinking, man, you could do like version 1, but version 2 is also just so beautiful. Like, I love that version, and that's more almost retro, isn't it, than it is kind of futuristic.
Yeah, that's true, and you could also really do a Finback, and if they were thinking about doing any sort of exclusives or anything, they could get away with doing the Killer Whale version too.
Oh yeah, totally.
So what I would love to see is
version 2. I'm sorry to interrupt. Not that came with version 2, but to add something into the pack, I would like to see Finback as well.
Totally.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, as a Marvel Comics fanatic, I would love to see kind of his, quilted sweater sort of look with his like kind of floppy white hat and life vest that he could put on maybe inside the armor, so he could kind of match both. But I really love your idea. Kind of the first, I love the snake armor idea even more, but kind of the first picture that came to my head when you mentioned this was sort of the 2000 wetsuit who, was the wetsuit character, but had kind of like bulky armor on. But I almost like your kind of removable snap-on oversized armor idea even better. You could do whatever you wanted with the figure inside. I think it's a really cool idea.
Yeah, totally. Really like that one, Pat. Good shout, mate. And
so it's just the wish list, and of course I like Finback, so I'm just kind of trying to throw him in there wherever I can.
Well, we've got some cracking animal companions on the way, so yeah, totally. I'm down for that. Where would the articulation go?
On a dolphin?
Jaws? Well, actually, yeah, I was thinking the killer whale, but yeah, the dolphin, yeah.
Split torso? I mean, both. You'd probably have similar articulation on both of those creatures, wouldn't you? Underwater creatures.
Kind of look at the Sigma 6 kind of Wave 2 Adventure Team Shark that they did that kind of had sort of that mid-torso joint, and I think there was a hinge in the tail or something like that. You could do some of that stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if they could do maybe like a internal skeleton and a rubbery figure for that either.
That'd be cool.
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Maybe.
What's your number 2?
Is going to be Overlord. I think that he is a bit of an undervisited Cobra villain, and I really would be curious to see what they would do with him in the classified series.
Out of nowhere, Pat drops an Overlord on us. That's incredible.
Amazing.
It's funny. It's a character that, you're right, just never, ever really comes up in conversations, in anything. We joke about, we'll talk about Downtown and Lightfoot and Ice Cream Soldier more or less every single episode. Armadillo. But like, we need to get the Armadillo shout in there, don't we? But Overlord never comes up. What makes you want Overlord, Pat?
Well, I got back into G.I. Joe around 1989.
Oh, bugger off with your Snake Eyes version 3.
And so Overlord didn't come very long after that, and he was one of my friends had given to me as a gift, and I was just really in love with the character and the figure right away. I mean, figures that come in vehicles having several accessories. He also was treated kind of in the same way, with being one of the figures that's really featured as far as a vehicle driver in things, because the commercials were really playing him up to be the year's big Cobra villain.
Yeah.
And there's also the fun of that Dave Dorman art where he was conceptually Cobra Commander at one point.
Yes.
Or mentioned as Cobra Commander. Not really sure what all was going on with that. But I just think that he's a fun-looking Cobra that we don't see very much. And if they're going to kind of show a little bit of classified series inspiration into that figure, I'm just curious what they would come up with. Lots of golds and oranges and various textures. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Really interesting to see what they would do in like a classified sense there. Is Overlord on your radar, Justin?
Well, not really until Pat mentioned it. The minute Pat mentioned him, it was like, oh yeah, all over it. I mean, Overlord is one of those characters that, you know, G.I. Joe fans will always say, oh, there's these characters that are overlooked, and then they'll go and recite a number of different characters that they consider overlooked, but Big Boa, Crocmaster, all these characters that are overlooked yet appear frequently throughout the line. But
Constantly.
I really think Overlord is one of those characters that really is overlooked. And his, like Pat said, his file card, kind of the advertising around the time really seemed to kind of lift him up to be this sort of mythical Cobra figure, but nobody ever did anything with him. I know Devil Stew kind of explored him as part of the Coil, and that spun into the G.I. Joe Collectors Club featuring him in a con exclusive figure, but there is so much potential for Overlord. I mean, that's really a character that is a big absence in the Cobra mythology to this day. And I think that'd be a fantastic addition to the classified line. I love it.
Totally. Do you reckon we'll get his vehicle as well? There's me talking. It's a complete wish list, and I'm like, I've already gone. They're doing him now. So
yeah, if they're blowing tooling dollars on that thing, I don't know how much the fans would be into that. I'd love it, but yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, Pat, what's your number one, pal?
Number one has to be the figure that I played with the most in 1982 when I got first into G.I. Joe, and that's Flash. And it's also partially because I'd be curious what they would do with him with the classified series. I think that there's a bit of it's not a blank canvas, obviously, but I would not expect him to look exactly as he did in 1982, where it's just like the quilted armor. I would expect the armor to look somewhat different, or I don't know. I would be really curious to see what those designers would do with the idea of just having him be basically, green and having that orange armor. I would expect some more high-tech stuff to be packed in there than what it looked like in 82. I'm just very curious what they would do with that.
Just a point on that you make there. The fact that we've had Snake Eyes, we've had Breaker, and we look like we're getting Stalker as well, which was leaked a while back, but now has been kind of confirmed. I get the feeling that a lot of the original 13 kind of guys, they're going very kind of vintage, not accurate, but vintage inspired in their designs. I agree with you. I think Flash would... They'd probably change up the chest armor slightly, make it a little bit more kind of armored, maybe a little bit more futuristic. But I could see him looking pretty close to the original.
I don't think that the helmet would look like it originally did. I think that they probably would do something cool with a visor, and maybe
they updated Breaker's helmet, didn't they? In a good way, I'd say.
Yeah, I would think so too. So
cool.
I'd be curious to see that. Maybe we will get that one.
I like Flash in. Was it Rise of Cobra? I think it was Rise of Cobra with the all red kind of that was really cool. Well, what about you, Justin? You into Flash? You into flashing us?
Uh, no, yeah, I mean, I love the character. I love what they've kind of done. They've kind of set a little bit of a precedent with Breaker in that, kind of given us at least a starting point for some of the original 13 sort of designs. You can kind of see some hints of that sort of aesthetic in his uniform. I mean, obviously Flash would need some chest pads layered on top of it, but I love the idea. Flash, I've got a soft spot for Flash. Is actually the first Joe figure I ever bought. I bought the straight arm Flash along with the straight arm Cobra at the same time at an Ames department store way back in 1982. So I really love the character for that reason. But he is another guy that, beyond that sort of that Rise of Cobra update, he doesn't get a lot of love. I mean, you hear a lot of clamor for Grand Slam and for some of the other original 13 characters, but not so much Flash. So I would love to see Flash get reinvented in the classified line and really kind of ramp up his tech gear and stuff like that. I think it'd be pretty fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And right, well, with that said, Flash lasers his way to the top of Pat's list. He's not just a flash in the pan. Sorry, I can't think of any other amazing puns. So let's move into Justin's top three. Justin, take us through yours from number 3, please.
Yeah, well, number 3, I mean, anybody who's seen me kind of record these and can see over my shoulder probably knows what my third choice is going to be. Number 3 is definitely Hit and Run.
Hang on. I think third choice, people would have been like, no.
That's probably true, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the only reason he maybe didn't appear higher on the list just because I think Classified has an aesthetic that plays towards a different, not necessarily different, but a certain type of character, and Hit and Run being sort of a relatively, I'm not going to say ordinary, but, infantry type of guy, while I think could be done very well in G.I. Joe Classified, there's some other stuff that I'd kind of like to see at the larger scale a little bit more. But Hit and Run, I think, is just one of those characters that I've loved ever since I first set eyes on him. I mean, just the design of the figure is awesome with the, the face camouflage, the arm camouflage, his uniform.
The orange, the blue, the...
Exactly. Yeah, the mud on his face or whatever that weird color is. He's just a character that I really gravitated towards, mostly because Larry Hama did a fantastic job with his file card, taking this essentially a generic infantry guy and making, immediately giving him personality. His parents killed by a drunk driver. He was, the reason he can run so fast is because he's been running away from his life. I mean, it's just really, in that tiny paragraph, giving him as much character as he did just was fantastic. And obviously Hit and Run played a huge role in my, kind of personal G.I. Joe mythology. So I just, seeing what they've done with characters like Beachhead and characters like that, I think they really could do some fun stuff with Hit and Run. And I'd love sort of like, the duffel and have like a working grappling hook or something like that. I mean, there's a lot they could do with Hit and Run to make him cool.
I know, like you could have it interacting with the gear on his belt, all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's loads
Removable
of cool
helmet, I mean, it's just, there's so much stuff that they could do with
knife holster, giant knife on his backpack. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree, and I think Hit and Run was one of those ones that would have been on my list, honestly. And I think mainly from the Tiger Force perspective. And now that we know that the Target theme is going to be changing to Tiger Force, my hopes are that we're going to get a Hit and Run at some point, and then a Tiger Force one at some point. So, like, I feel like it's almost like a home run. It's almost like a home Hit and Run. You can't. I think it's going to happen at some point. I think that's one of the reasons I thought. And obviously, I knew you were going to be picking a list, so I knew Hit and Run was going to be on it. But I love the fact.
Am I that predictable?
Yes,
but I should have picked Hit and Run just to throw you a curveball.
There's only one in your list that surprised me, but the other two I was like, I could have picked those for him. No, he says, like, look at my list. I think. I love the fact that Hit and Run got a repaint in the comics as well in the special missions, where he's in that winter uniform. Oh,
yeah,
that I would love to see that. And obviously, there's the Night Force version, that whole history with the tank driver that was going to be using the Hit and Run body, and then the club used that deco, the kind of green and black, to make this kind of Night Force Hit and Run. So there's loads of like cool stuff around this character, loads of repaint opportunities. I think they'd be kind of foolish not to go with a Hit and Run at some point down the road. So I think this is for me, this is probably out of all of the ones we've picked, I think this Hit and Run, and maybe one other, are kind of, we can expect this to come.
And that's kind of another reason it kind of fell in at number 3, because like Pat said, I mean, he wanted to focus on figures that he legitimately did not think they were ever going to do.
Yeah.
I could also kind of see them doing a Hit and Run. mean, maybe not. I don't know. But Hit and Run's had, for being a character that is quote unquote kind of obscure, he's had, a ton of versions in the past, however many years, 50th anniversary of the G.I. Joe convention stuff. I mean, he's been all over the place. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they might do him in the classified line. So I felt pretty obligated to mention him on my list, but I also kind of think there's a possibility they'll do him. So that's another reason why I kind of fell to number 3.
I would also say as well, he's commercially obscure, but certainly within the majority of the fandom would probably be almost like a B-list to possibly even A-list character for a lot of people. But I agree. I think I agree with all of that. Pat, are you a fan of Hit and Run?
Yeah, the execution of the first figure was just so perfect. That was one of the ones that really I think was helping to draw me back into G.I. Joe at the time, because I kind of trailed off there sometime late in 85, but those characters that they were bringing out in 88 and 89 were just too good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a Hit and Run, I really would be curious to see what kind of gear he would come with, because that gear for Hit and Run kind of makes the figure.
Yeah.
I'd love an open duffel that you could put the rope in and everything. Oh, it would just be so cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'd want lots of rope though, so that he could really be.
Yeah, I want to have a zip line from like one side of my basement to the other, so I can be recording on full force and then just have go like screaming behind me.
Yeah, totally in for that one, Justin.
That'd be awesome.
Good shout, and definitely Tiger Force Hit and Run. Definitely for me on that one. Go for it, mate. What's your number 2?
Number 2, I
Tiger Force Hit and Run.
Yeah, I tried to think outside the box a little bit for number 2, and this is what I was talking about, where I wanted to see kind of what they could do in a 6-inch scale that would be really cool, like leaning into the classified aesthetic. So I went with Overkill, which is kind of the Bat leader who has had a few different iterations. He had his, obviously his vintage style, but then they had kind of a resurgence in the new sculpt era, which I actually really loved. That version in the new sculpt era. And then of course he also has a tie into Sigma 6, and I really loved him in the Sigma 6 series as well. So I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. I feel like Overkill is a character that people aren't necessarily really attached to, so that might give them some freedom to like really kind of go outside the box with their designs, and the swappable limbs, and knowing that we're getting a Bat. I mean, that's been pretty much confirmed by leaks from the factory and stuff. I think there's just a lot of potential to do some really awesome stuff with some kind of Bat commander that is like I would almost like to see him in a deluxe format, like Pat mentioned, having a ton of different gear and stuff that he could have, maybe even go crazy like they did with Sigma 6, where the bottom half of him comes off and it has like spider legs or something. I mean, that'd be really, really awesome. I could really be into seeing what they could do with him.
Be amazing. And that's a good shout. And again, like I just think of the chest compartment and like the buttons
have
boom boom.
Yeah. Oh man, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I would love that. And that's one that you could get, if you're doing a deluxe, that Hasbro could do some fun stuff with, like, maybe talking battle commanders related, maybe like lights and sounds, maybe something like that. That's definitely a character you could kind of incorporate that into.
Some like techno weapons racks or something like that with a bunch of attachments that could swap on him or also swap on the Bats. I mean, that'd be pretty cool.
So cool. Another good shout there, mate. And both of you have got over characters, and you used all the over characters. I couldn't find any more that had the word over in them. You did say, why didn't you do Undertow?
I did, yeah. I mentioned Undertow, yeah. I'm expecting him on your list now.
No, unfortunately, he didn't make it. Which is funny, because a completely different character in a similar specialty did make it, but we'll get to mine in a second. Continue on, Justin. What's your big one?
So I think everybody can probably guess at least the theme that my big one belongs to, and that's Sigma 6 Lieutenant Stone would probably be my number 1 wish list, just because I think Classified is an opportunity for Hasbro to kind of pull from some of these different continuities and kind of funnel it all up into a singular line. I'd love to see them do some stuff with G.I. Joe Extreme or even Sergeant Savage, and I think Sigma 6 is just totally ripe for the picking in some of these things. And doing, just seeing how they did kind of Major Blood's cybernetic arm and the detail on his face, kind of the weathered mercenary look. I really think they could do some fun stuff with Lieutenant Stone in kind of the same way. Just the way they could do the robotics and kind of the translucent green colors and do some interesting stuff for the Sigma suit. And obviously, as we talk about this stuff, tooling dollars are always a concern. So they could use kind of make a Sigma 6 sort of base body that they end up reusing for some various Sigma 6 characters. I know that's mostly a wish list, but I just think that'd be really cool. I still, after all these years, have a real soft spot for Sigma 6, and I would love to see it get some more recognition in the mainstream G.I. Joe line. And I just think Lieutenant Stone especially is one that has some of that design flair that they could really do some pretty neat stuff with.
It's weird, you never really mentioned Sigma 6, so we have no idea if you like it or not. No, that's
my poorly kept secret.
That's a good one. We've already had...
I think I've even...
Have you got...
Is my... See, now I'm ruining the flow, because it's going to take me it's my shirt. Belong to Hasbro, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, you can't... I mean, it's everywhere. You can't avoid it. Look, he's covered in it.
Yeah.
I definitely would love to see Sigma 6 elements incorporated into the classified line. I kind of feel like we've had it with Timber now. I feel like they've incorporated the Sigma 6 Timber into the Alpha Commandos. That's only because it's an articulated wolf. But yeah, I would love to see some of those elements kind of brought in, and I think Lieutenant Stone's a good character to do that with. What I must admit, though, I think I love Sigma 6 mainly for all of the crazy bad guy stuff, like Zartan and some of the characters from on the bad guy side are just incredible.
Destro and his weird magnetic psychic powers, and it did some really fun stuff. I mean, the cartoon unfortunately the execution wasn't fantastic, but I really liked some of the conceptual stuff that they did.
It's one of the best cartoons ever made, isn't it?
If only for the voice acting, yeah.
I appreciate that Hasbro's still been putting the cartoon episodes up on YouTube. That's a plus for me.
Yeah,
I've been checking them out on YouTube, actually. I put them on every now and again, and kind of it's kind of almost like background.
Right.
But yeah, some of it's a bit of a tough watch, but there are certain aspects to it I like. And plus, it's the toy line we're really kind of focusing on here, and how innovative that line was, and so many cool elements were brought in. Just the packaging itself was its own containment unit. That was brilliant. That was genius, in my opinion.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
We're probably going to continue getting versions of the core characters of G.I. Joe. I think that Sigma 6 Cobra Commander would definitely be one of the versions of Cobra Commander that would be nice to see.
Definitely. Okay, well, cool. So that's Justin's Sigma 6 and hit and run list that he's dropped on us. No, I'm kidding. Again, really solid list. Really enjoy those choices. We're kind of going, like we said before, we're going a little bit like, characters that probably wouldn't necessarily see the light of day in classified. This is really just a personal kind of thing. And obviously, for myself, I'm starting at number 3, and you'll probably be surprised at why number 3. It's the whole hit and run. I just spoiled it. I just spoiled the whole thing. I'm going to beat that so that the audience aren't spoiled. It's the whole hit and run thing with Justin here. And obviously, my number 3, as I've just told the guys there, is Lightfoot. Now, this is one of those characters. I will confirm a few things here. A lot of people think this is like some sort of character that I've had a connection with forever. And yeah, kind of, but it was really due to me cosplaying this character in this Night Force uniform that has made me love the character even more, to the point where I talk about him a lot and want him in, different things like the classified toy line and so on and so forth. But it wasn't until I saw a Nerf Terror Scout on the shelves in a Toys R Us where I went, that would be really cool as Lightfoot's little drone, his little mine detector drone. I built it, and lo and behold, I embodied the Lightfoot character. So that's the reason for my love for this character more than most at the current time. And it's only, like I said, it's only been in the last few years that's really been the case. But the character, the figure, back when I was a kid, I had it and I loved it. The bright yellow, the colours, the orange, the blues, the greens, all these really bright, bold colours on that figure. We don't necessarily have to have that version coming into the classified line, but I just think he would make for the most incredible, updated kind of figure with all those accessories, all those cool little bits and pieces. The drone, the little drone would be really cool. I just think they could do so many cool things with this. And I look at Firefly, and I look at the drone that he comes with that fits to his backpack, and I think that's they've gone above and beyond for that character. Because he didn't have that in the past, but he's got it now. So Lightfoot has all this stuff already. Like, you don't have to go too far away to create something really cool for him. And I will say, Tunnel Rat came with that. It was like in the modern era, it was like a mine detector robot thing with a
Sigma 6 robot.
Was it the Sigma 6?
Yeah. It was, I think, an unreleased Sigma 6 item, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What was the Tunnel Rat figure that came with that in the 4-inch line?
Was
it the Renegades?
Yeah, it was Renegades.
Renegades, yes.
Okay, sorry.
We used that, I think, was it for Long Arm?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was originally gonna come, I believe, with Sigma 6 Short Fuse, which never got produced. Yeah.
Ah, cool. Well, like I said, it doesn't have to be like that original design. It could be something very much more like, what we see today. He could even come with one of those dog robots that we see loads, like the ones that were in Black Mirror and the ones that you see Boston Dynamics working on, and like you kick them and they won't fall down, and you just think maybe stop kicking that thing, because at some point it's going to gain sentience and we're going to be fighting off dog robots. I've been watching way too much Black Mirror. But
when I drove down to Rhode Island to see you guys a couple of weeks ago, I drove right past the Boston Dynamics building, and I was like, "Ooh!" Did
they all chase you down the street?
Yeah,
like dogs chase cars.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be amazing. So I just think he's ripe for a really cool update. I'm not sure what you guys think about that in the classified line.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. Anybody that comes with some of those kind of cool, like, larger accessories like the drones and the robots and stuff, I think is ripe for some really awesome design aesthetics with classified, both from the scale perspective and just kind of how Lenny and others sort of approach how they design the classified stuff. I think there's some real awesome potential for cool stuff there.
He's almost like difficult to update when you look at him, because he's already about 25 years in the future, isn't he?
Yeah, between his like weird helmet and the kind of the design of the uniform, it'd be interesting to see kind of what they would. I think he's another character that classic fans might not be really attached to how he looked back in the day, so they'd probably be free to kind of update him a little bit and give him some kind of fancy new gear, which I think would be really cool.
I think people would be generally receptive to it. That there is a lot going on in that design, but a lot that they could incorporate into a new one. And as long as the robot is orange, I think that it would work well, whichever design.
And I want loads of lenticular stickers all over it as well, backpack and everything. But yeah, and again, maybe we were talking about Overkill getting some lights and sounds. I reckon Lightfoot would get some pretty cool updates like that as well in all his gear.
That could be cool.
You think we need lights and sounds?
I don't think I know we need lights and sounds. I'm thinking more like deluxe anyway. I'm thinking like when they do deluxe stuff, and I think it would be a cute homage, honestly. I think not necessarily sounds, but definitely some sort of light incorporation might be quite nice. Especially in like the bigger kind of accessories and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that I could see that being used for some, I don't know, like maybe some, I'm imagining the blast effects that light up, and those are usually really nice when I see those posted online. So yeah, there's definitely a spot for it.
Totally. We've spoken, so that's going to happen next week, I believe they're revealing that. So yeah, that's my third, Lightfoot. And again, if we got him in Night Force, if we got him in Tiger Force, I'm kidding, he does not in Tiger Force. But if we got him in some other fashion, I wouldn't mind. I love the character, and I think he looks amazing. So next up, and this is one that links a little bit to Undertow territory. Now, for me, my number 2 is Hydro Viper. And the reason I want this in 6-inch scale isn't it obvious? The 4-inch figure is, for me, personally, the best Cobra designed figure of all time. I think he looks outstanding. I think there's textures and all sorts going on. I just think he's unbelievably cool. Like the card art is sensational. The helmet is intimidating. Even the color scheme's gorgeous. Like that kind of like the purples and the other purples and the kind of dark reddy pink kind of color. It just blows me away every time I look at it. I love the backstory behind them. The fact that they've had all sorts of genetic experiments put on them. They've got added subcutaneous fat on their body so that they can dive to like ridiculous levels. They've got.
I could be a Hydro Viper. Subcutaneous fat.
Yeah, you could. They've got webbed fingers, I believe, as well, Justin. So I think one hand has got webbed fingers. So I think they even say that one of them is webbed for, for underwater shenanigans. I don't know.
Webbed for her pleasure.
Yes. But like I just love him. I think he's amazing. I think it's a great design. I think it's like bonkers at the same time. It's got that perfect balance of like criminally insane but also really cool. And I think there's a really cool dynamic with everything about it. At 6-inch scale, the detail you could get in all of the different panels and segments and the skin feel, and I just think it would be amazing. The flippers are like giant dragon's feet. I just love that so much. To have like talons, and it's just brilliant. The whole thing's genius. I would say I would love to have a place for his knife, the kind of like the lightning bolt knife, and also his harpoon kind of rifle thing. I'd love that to have like on the card art, like clips to his leg or something. And yeah, I just think awesome. And again, you could really get into some really cool removable helmet. You could have the balaclava face underneath, maybe some other aspects, like where you could see like the veins in their skin or something, through the tight, just something really cool like that. I think would be great.
Animal companion as well.
Yes, an articulated ray would be brilliant. Okay, I say this every time, but what parts would be articulated, guys? The mouth underneath, you could like flex out.
Well, the little wing things, that'd be cool. His tail.
I think just rubbery would be the way to go on that.
That could work.
Pat always says that. I think he's a bit of a rubber fetishist over there. He loves his Snake Eyes version 3 costume, which is effectively stolen from a bunch of sadomasochists. So, of course, he loves the thong back leatherette gimp suit aesthetic.
Oh my goodness. You got me sold on the Hydro Viper, Chris. That's I love that idea. I really dig kind of the genetic engineering aspect of that character, and they could do some really awesome stuff at a 6-inch scale, just describing kind of the different patterns of the uniform and the webbed hand. It'd be great if they could do some swappable hands like they do with Cobra Commander, where they got a couple webbed ones and then a couple regular ones, and really ramp it up. I mean, it's very cool. It was always kind of, for the figure, as a kid, I was a little confused, like whether the flippers were kind of meant to be feet or whether they actually were flippers. They did look so organic, and he was all mutated. So, I think there's some really a lot of potential for some cool design aesthetics for that one. So yeah, I love that idea.
Totes. Are you into that one, Pat, or are you highly against? Do you prefer version 3?
As long as it's rubber, he's good.
No, I mean that would be a great thing to have on the shelf around the same time as Deep Six, so they could both be underwater guys battling each other.
Absolutely.
Perfect. 2023,
it's going to be the underwater target theme, isn't it? It's going to be Hydro Vipers.
Everybody will be bitching because it's so hard to get them, though.
No, that's true. That is very true. It'll be a Python Hydro Viper, which is they just put the grid on him and he's done. Right. My number one then. My number one I've saved, I feel like the best till last in this one. And it's weird because this character is quite a divisive one, I think, in the community as a whole. But I say that, but he's still really popular. And that is Serpentor. Now, again, I think this is another one, in a similar way to the Hydro Viper, would translate really well into the 6-inch with the detail on the... I mean, we've seen like recent statues from PCS, and we've seen all sorts of different kind of iterations. The Prime 1, actually, more likely. Let's talk about that Prime 1 statue. Is phenomenal, and I could see them doing something like that in the classified scale, and also maybe as a deluxe with his air chariot, because it'd be difficult not to have something like that, which is a small vehicle that they are, they're inclined to do now. So I think it's something that could be quite possibly done here.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say that I didn't pick Serpentor because I figured somebody else would pick him, but in truth, until I saw Chris's list, that he had escaped me, and I slapped myself afterwards because I think you bring up a good point. In a way, I think he's a little divisive. I think back, way back, in the olden days. There was definitely camps of Cobra Commander and Serpentor. I mean, they battled each other, and there was fans who really preferred Cobra Commander and fans who really preferred Serpentor. And then the Civil War happened, and Serpentor got killed or whatever.
Spoiler.
And Cobra Commander sorry, spoiler for 30-year-old comic books. But yeah, Cobra Commander got re-elevated, and then of course there was Fred 7 and all that other stuff. But I think these days people have really latched on to Serpentor as a cool, visually appealing character, regardless of kind of what his purpose is. And this is tailor-made. I think in the next 2 or 3 years, guaranteed, this is going to happen. We're going to see a Serpentor in some way, shape, or form. He's just too much of a central character.
Yeah.
His design is too awesome and would be awesome in a 6-inch scale. I could easily see them really sinking some dollars into a deluxe version with his air chariot and a big, long, soft goods cape and really go crazy. I could see, even if they didn't do the air chariot, I mean, something like kind of the Snake Supreme Cobra Commander with his cape and things like that, but even more kind of outlandish. But yeah, this almost seems like a slam dunk. Like Serpentor is likely going to happen at some point, and I think there's a lot of potential for some cool stuff they could do. Even they could do a removable helmet or swappable heads. You probably don't have to. He doesn't. I know back in his original comic appearance, he had sort of that bare chest and whatever. But so it'd be kind of neat to see them work that in somehow, but I'd rather they just do a badass armor. Yeah, I want to see his six pack. I mean, the guy works out. He's got to show it off.
I think this is where you could get really cool with some little homage accessories. And I know, obviously, Pat and I have discussed the Pythona scene to death, the sticky clam scene that we call it now. But also
more ways than one.
Obviously, you've got his hardened snakes as well, so you could have the wibbly snakes, right? But then also a bunch of stiff ones too.
I prefer my snakes stiff over wibbly.
But you could have him like that, like holding it and everything like that. Could be like some of the production photos. Could be him stiffening his snake in front of Pythona, who they'd also reveal at that point. Because another thing, I'm
uncomfortable with this line of conversation, Chris.
I'd definitely have Pythona in this as well. Like, I think she would be such a good figure, but she was just pipped to the post by Serpentor this time around for me. I could have gone all 3 Cobra, characters, honestly, in my top 3, and they're all very well. Pythona and Hydra Viper, similar color palette. Serpentor, obviously, similar theme. I just think it would be so awesome to have him, and like saying, the accessories. You could have all sorts of cool Cobra La related accessories. You could have different faces for him in much the same way where you see him going through his I'm not sure in the cartoon if it was, because I never really understood this in the cartoon. There's a scene in My Favorite Things where he's talking about, he's walking past different, antiques, and they're all related to different parts of his DNA, and his face changes to match the person that he is. And I know that was probably a metaphorical visual as opposed to an actual physical thing change. But you could have different heads that would be like Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great, Dracula, Xanath Amon Toth, that kind of thing,
See, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I love that idea. I could see that being more of a Super 7 kind of Ultimates kind of thing rather than classified.
You're right.
But I could definitely see them doing that, and I love that concept for sure.
No, you're totally right, actually, and that probably takes the heat off classified having to do something like that. Totally.
Yeah, and I still want to see a classified Serpentor. I think they could be two totally different things with totally different aesthetics. But
agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah, so that's my that's kind of my reasoning on Serpentor. Pat, is that one you'd like to see?
Yeah, I kind of think that Serpentor is going to happen regardless of he seems to be on the list, for almost for sure. That's why I didn't put him on my own. Yeah, the things that you guys said, I definitely would want the air chariot because it is one of the GI Joe vehicles that it's an iconic vehicle enough, and I don't think
yeah.
that it's something that you could release on its own, and you definitely can't release it with a different character.
Mm-hmm.
So your one shot at doing the air chariot is while you were doing a Serpentor figure. I mean, I guess they could do more than one Serpentor as well. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. Maybe you could have the standard Serpentor in a standard package, and then Justin could get his bare-chested Serpentor with the air chariot.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
6-packs, baby, 6-packs.
I suppose all these choices are very much wish list items for all of us. But we'd love to see what you guys think as well. Like, we want to see, what your top threes are. Again, try and stick to our rules as well. Like, if you think it's going to happen, like almost certainly. I mean, there's a lot of characters that they're probably going to do. Let's face it. There's loads. But are there any personal to you guys that you'd love to see done? I'm sure there are. It could be any different sub-team. It could be any different character. So, just let us know in the comments below. And we will ridicule every single one of you for it. I'm just kidding. We won't. So that is our top threes. Guys, thanks for jumping on and chatting with me in lieu of any real G.I. Joe news this week.
We make the news today.
Yeah, we made it. We made it by revealing characters that are never going to happen in the classified line. But let's do some shout-outs before we move on. Right, okay, into shout-outs then. And Justin, you haven't been on a weekly for a long time. Give us your shout-outs, please, first, buddy.
Well, I do. I want to give a big shout-out, first of all, considering what's going on this weekend, to Ryan Costello, who is deeply involved in the Renegades G.I. Joe RPG and is going to be appearing, I believe, tomorrow on some live panels to talk about his work with G.I. Joe RPG. It turns out that he actually helped kind of develop the core gaming system that runs almost all of Renegade's licensed RPGs, which is pretty amazing. And it's really impressive to kind of see all this work and effort that he's obviously putting into this. And I'm really excited to kind of see what details they are revealing for the G.I. Joe RPG tomorrow. It's going to be pretty fun stuff, I think. And a big shout out to him, because he's worked long and hard to get to this point. And I'm really proud of all the stuff he's done and all the stuff he continues to do. It's pretty great.
Absolutely. I second that. Any others?
Well, I could shout out you and the Boss Fight crew for hosting me and my daughter a little while ago. We can and Joel, of course, for making the trek out from Wisconsin to hang out with everybody. We had a little JoelCon 2021 a little while ago, which was a lot of fun. I unfortunately could only stop by for I was there for about 5 or 6 hours, but hung out with everybody for a while. Had a lot of fun. Did a lot of nerding out and toy talking and stuff, and that was a blast. So
looked at Eric's customs, his classified customs. Man.
Those things are amazing.
He's got like a whole lineup of Ninja Force, hasn't he? And it's just outstanding. Like and Ninja Commandos as well. Yeah, the Road Pig one.
Yeah.
Next level.
So awesome. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was great to see everybody. And so shout out to all of you folks for you and Kate for hosting myself and my daughter and Joel for a little while that day. And then obviously the Aranyas for having a little shindig. That was a good time.
It was great, wasn't it? Lots of fun.
Yeah, it was.
Big shout out to those peeps. Pat, any shout outs for you, my good man?
As always, shout out to Philip.
Of course. Go
Phil. That might be my one shout out this week.
Is that just Philip? Screw the rest of everyone else.
Yeah, that's right. Just Philip.
Big shout out to Phil, who, we were on Armour too, like that weekend that Justin was talking about. So I will also give a shout out to Brian Sauer for Armour 2 again. I know we did it last week, but I'll do it again. And for the awesome graphics as well. And as always, a big shout out to my family and to my wonderful wife, Kate. Love you all. I'm kind of thinking about maybe flying out to the UK very soon. So, trying to get that sorted out.
Awesome.
So, fingers crossed we can get that sorted out without any issues. I'm sure there'll be something to try and stop it. One other thing I will mention, Pulse. I got this wonderful G2 ramjet.
Nice.
Through, finally. Been waiting for this guy for a while. Absolutely gorgeous deco. I loved. As soon as I saw this Generation Select bad boy, I was like, yeah, I have to. Like, just
beautiful.
Honestly, the G2 colors are just so good. and I will take most kind of like, most of the kind of like mainline Transformers figures I'll take in G2 colors all day long. So yeah, really like that. Yeah, very cool. That's the only thing I got in. Okay, I've got a really big shout out that I forgot to do last week that I'll do this week to Skinny Joe fan, who sent me, thanks to being near his bloomin' movie theatre and being good friends with them, managed to get me, and I don't have it behind me just yet because it's massive, a Snake Eyes movie like big display. Thank you, a standee, and it Amazing. Is massive. So maybe by the next episode I'll have it constructed, but it's far bigger than I even expected. It, like, when it came in the post, it was bigger than my couch. It was long.
That's amazing.
And I'm just like, oh my god. So that's in the storage room right now because we have space in here, but it's gonna be such a pain putting that up. Anyway, really big shout out to Skinny. Thank you so much for doing that for me, mate. Really appreciated. And thank you to
mention what I got into. I got my
yes,
Roadblock and Snake Eyes.
Nice. You got your Alpha Commandos. Where's Timber?
Yes.
Brings the entire shelf down. There he is.
Oh. There's Timber.
Timber. No, that's awesome, man. Did you get anything in, Pat?
I'm sure I did, but not anything off the top of my head that I can think of. Not anything big. I mean, I got that Ramjet as well.
Oh, nice. What do you think?
Oh, he's awesome. Yeah, I was really happy that they're doing. I'm happy that they're doing all those colors on those. I definitely was all in on the classics mold of Starscream, so it is weird to continue buying those Seeker jets in so many colors. But it's a decent iteration of them, and I like the size of them, so I'm happy to have it.
What I think is really funny about the figure is the fact that his head is tiny, and compared to the actual cockpit on the vehicle mode, like the difference in size is dramatic. And I find it funny that, like, when he transforms, he still keeps his cone head, but it's not the actual cone of the vehicle. I just find that really funny. It's almost like the ones that transform and the chest isn't the actual front window. It's a different thing completely. And, sometimes it makes sense to, for sizing and, it's just easier for the transformation. But what I just think it's really hilarious that his head is a completely different size to the actual cockpit itself. What are you going to do, right? Exactly. Transformers, scale doesn't come into it. Right.
True.
Isn't it? Yeah. Okay. So we're the end of the shout outs, basically. So as always, it's not Pride Month anymore, but guess what? We are still going to show our support for the LGBTQ plus community, because that's the kind of people we are. And as we say on every episode, we stand with the Asian and Pacific Islander communities in saying Stop Asian Hate, and will continue to do so. Follow the links in the description if you want more information or just want to do more to help. And of course, to our patrons, listeners, viewers, thank you so much for all the amazing support. We've picked up a couple more patrons in the last week or so. So again, big shout out to all of you newcomers. Hope you're enjoying all of the loads of cool content we've got, the extra bonus content, all those Intel episodes that we're not allowed to talk about on the main show. Yeah, check out all of that stuff out on our Patreon page. And links in the description for everything you've been after. Thanks for joining us, guys, on this one, and thanks for jumping on and filling in for what has been a pretty non-existent G.I. Joe news week this week. It's weird to not have anything to talk about news-wise, isn't it?
It's like the movie came out, it hit streaming, and then
nothing.
Nothing.
You check the internet right now while we were talking.
Hang on, 80s Tees have just revealed
the next 3 years of classified designs.
Or it seems all the talk is on the upcoming Renegade Con, so that's what we're dealing with at the moment. So that'll be happening this weekend, and I'll try and get some news bursts out on Saturday, and possibly tonight. But yeah, that you're going to know what's happening if you're watching the show. So check it out. Justin, thank you. Pat, thank you very much. Really appreciate you guys jumping on.
Thank you very much. Good talking to you guys.
Always. always. That brings us to the end of another fantastic episode, this time with no news whatsoever. Thank you for watching the Full Force Weekly. Massive thank you to my awesome co-host Patrick Notpicard Stewart and Justin GeneralsJoes Bell. See you next time, and as always, after... What is it, guys?
It's the Full Force Weekly. I was waiting for
what
you
he said.
Crazy right at the end.
He knew it. He knows now. He knows. I can't catch. What is it, guys?
The Full Force non-movie news burst weekly top 3 classified figures.
Perfect. After 3, as always, 1, 2, 3.
Full Force.
Perfect. Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @TheFullForce, liking the Facebook page facebook.com/TheFullForce, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback and questions. We also have a Patreon page, so if you want to show your support for the show, see your name up in lights on these videos, or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/The Full Force Podcast, or click on the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force.